Yeah, should be. Go.
Are we live? So sorry, audience. Let's try this for a third time. Hopefully, the third time's the charm. Carlos Cascos.
Third time.
Thanks again. Thanks
Thank
for bearing
you.
with us.
Thank you, Steve.
We're trying to do a live stream here on a very important topic, your race for Cameron County Judge. You were starting to tell us your platform, so if you don't mind, let's
Sure.
start from there.
Well, it's the same platform that I had when I first ran, and it talks about the main topic is fiscal accountability and fiscal responsibility. You know, I'm a CPA by profession, and so obviously numbers are something that I do look at. As I prefaced during the first episode 1, season 1, a few minutes ago, when I went in 2007. For those that are listening that are in business and watching and run a business, that they know how important that rainy day fund is, retained earnings, net worth. When I got in there, the number of days of operations that the county had at the time was about 28 days. Unacceptable. That means that if no one paid any money, we couldn't get any money, the county could still operate for 28 days. As a CPA, we recommend anywhere from 60, 75 to 90 days worth of operations, especially for a governmental entity, and especially the fact that we live in a coastal region that's subject to tropical storms and hurricanes, as we did in 2008 with Hurricane Dolly. When I left, we had just under 90 days of operations, and it took a lot of hard work from a lot of the department heads, the rest of the commissioners court, to adopt budgets that were not only balanced, because we have to balance a budget, but we started looking at increasing our days of operations. And I was not very popular with a lot of the county employees for probably about a good 2 or 3 years, because we could not give raises without raising taxes, without dipping into our rainy day fund. So I would advocate no raises for employees until we got our financial structure back where I thought it needed to be. Eventually, we started giving raises again. We gave bonuses. I was never a proponent of percentage increases, and the reason for that is, you know, some entities give a 3% raise across the board. Well, a 3% raise to somebody making $100,000 a year is a $3,000 raise. For the rank and file, a 3% raise if they're making $20,000 is $600. So we decided, the court agreed with me to just to give everybody, let's say, $1,000. So the percentage increase to our rank and file was much higher than those county employees that were up, making high 5 figures, low 6 figures. So that seemed to work. 1 year we even gave a bonus, and I think we did that 1 year because we could do it without raising taxes. Someone commented that since I was on the commission, taxes went up 14%. That's accurate. Went up 14% in 8 years, which really isn't very much, considering government is not immune to rising costs of health insurance, concrete, asphalt, gasoline as an example. Things go up for government as well. So we were able to maintain taxes very, very low, one of the lowest on the border. Our bond rating got better as we went along. And so that's the same platform. It's not going to change a whole lot. Of course, I learned a lot of things while I was secretary. I got to visit 142 cities.
We should tell the viewers, because we joined only on the third taping here, that we introduced you earlier, former Secretary of State.
That's correct.
And that's what you're referring to there.
Yeah, when I was Secretary of State, I had the opportunity to travel Texas, and that's what I wanted to do as Secretary. Did 142 different cities. I got to visit with entrepreneurs, with people in business, people in government, wanting to find out what their community did to be successful, and some were not successful. And so I learned a lot of things as Secretary of State that I can bring back to Cameron that I did not know before. So that in and of itself, I think, is a benefit that I can bring back to our community.
Now, you're running again for a seat you used to hold. Is it because you just feel you can do better than the current incumbent, or are you unhappy with the way the administration has been the last few years since you've been out of office? Are they doing some things wrong, or can you just manage the county better than they are currently?
I think, I'm applying for a job, a position. And I think if we compare resumes, I think that my public service is very, not only longer, but broader in terms of the positions that I've held at the county level and the state level. My opponent really hasn't been there long enough. He's only passed one budget, maybe two now. So really, but I don't see anything happening, and that's, when I came back, I was basically done, with politics. The intent was never to seek out the position again, but when I came back, I just started getting frequent phone calls. Every time, that I would visit with people, they'd ask me to run. I'm not saying I was getting, 10 phone calls a day, but I was getting weekly calls about, from people that were concerned. And I started just kind of sat back and looked at it, and I believe I can do a better job. I think that what I hear is, let's keep the county moving forward. Well, it's easy to move forward when you're standing still, but at the same time, I believe that we did a much better job. And in the 8 years I was there, a lot of projects that are having ribbon cuttings today started when I was county judge. Whether it was the animal shelter, whether it's parks, those things didn't happen over the last 12 months. Those things are take a long time to occur. The relationships that I developed as secretary, and of course, we have to keep in mind that, or I think we need to keep in mind that where we are, where we live. We live in the Rio Grande Valley. Great place to live, great place to raise a family, great place. But we also are dealing with Republican administrations at the state and the national level. And if we focus on the state level, I've developed some very good relationships with key agencies that I still keep a relationship with, that I believe can help our county, whether it's the Texas Department of Transportation, whether it's the Texas Health and Human Services, whether it's TCEQ. There's a lot of agencies that Cameron relies upon. Probably the most important agency, if I had to guess, if I had to pick one, would be TxDOT. I think the Texas Department of Transportation is the agency that we rely on for state dollars, for infrastructure projects, whether it's the Causeway, whether it's a West Rail, whether it's the East Loop, whether it's just infrastructure projects. We rely a lot on TxDOT. And I'm fortunate enough to know the chairman personally, three of the other commissioners I know personally. And that always helps when you're dealing with state agencies, developing that personal relationship, which is a relationship I don't believe that my opponent can look
So
at.
you think, as county judge, because you've got better, stronger relationships with Austin, you can actually bring down more state and federal dollars to Cameron County because of those relationships than the incumbent?
Well, that's. I know,
Or is that too
I know,
simplistic?
no, and I know that that's a yes or no question, but I think that the answer is we live in a market that's very competitive with other markets in terms of tax dollars and state dollars. So I believe that I can, visit, pick up the phone, and at least get an audience with a TxDOT commissioner, not necessarily a staff person or something. I think that they will listen. One of the topics that's come up is the merging of the MPOs, the metropolitan planning organizations. There's Hidalgo County, there's Brownsville, and there's the Harlingen and San Benito one. I'm a proponent of merging the three. Once all the caveats are met in terms of the structure, in terms of the dollars that are going to come in, but I think that if we want to sit at the table with what I see as the big boys, okay, and I'm speaking about Harris County, Tarrant County, Travis County, Bexar County, and El Paso County, the largest metropolitan regions in the state. Right now, we are not at the table with them because we're small, not being together. Once we unite and we bring together the region, and I've spoken about regionalism for years. It's nothing new. I think that we actually get a seat at the table. They will listen more, but that's something that I'm going to work with the mayors and the city councils of the region, and hopefully come up with a program, a plan that makes it beneficial for all of us.
Okay, well, let's stick with the MPO as you brought that up. Isn't the bottleneck right now emanating out of Brownsville? Isn't it the case that the Brownsville MPO is the one that doesn't want to? That's the way some of the news reporting's been, that Harlingen and San Benito is willing to, if everyone is in agreement. Hidalgo says yes, they want a united MPO, means more dollars for the valley, but Brownsville's stuck on that issue for whatever reason. So you would have to persuade Brownsville MPO to.
Yeah, I think the challenge is going to be the way the board is structured. Number one. Number two, some kind of a guarantee that the Brownsville will not lose state dollars to come in. I think I can work that out with TxDOT. I think that, look, we have to understand this, and I think sometimes, I was raised in Brownsville, although I wasn't born here, but I was raised in Brownsville. I believe I know how Brownsville thinks, and we need to recognize that Hidalgo County is the big stick in this game. They have over twice the population that Cameron does. They've got a much larger tax base than we do. And it's kind of hard to get Brownsville to think, you're on the same playing field. It's like trying to compare, with all due respect to Willacy, it's trying to compare Willacy to Cameron. Maybe not that great of a divide in terms of population. In other words, the Willacy Cameron is much greater in terms of population than Cameron and Hidalgo. But the point is that Hidalgo, I think we can work it in such a way where Hidalgo County does not have a controlling vote. Let's say if there's 12 members on this board, well, let's give Hidalgo County 5, and then then divvy up the remaining 7 between Harlingen and Brownsville as an example. Now the other option too is, look, if Brownsville does not want to participate, then you find a way to carve Brownsville out. Just okay, fine. You don't want to do that, then let's set up another regional MPO, but bring in South Padre Island, bring in the Laguna Madre area, bring in maybe even Willacy, go up to Starr County, and create another MPO, and just Brownsville kind of gets left out, and then all of a sudden you've got a large MPO participating for state dollars, and Brownsville may get left out.
Do you think Harlingen would go with that?
I don't know. I think they'll all go with it if they believe that it's going to be a benefit to their community. But we have to look at our region as a true metroplex region area. We cannot be an island other than South Padre, but we cannot be an island in our way of thinking. And if you talk to everyone, they always talk about regionalism, but when it comes down to it, it's my backyard type of thing. When I went in 2007, I was promoting a regional convention center, something that we could all build, something and include every single community, whether it was Los Indios, whether it was Combs, whether it was Santa Rosa, Brownsville, everybody had a little piece. And even if it was 2% for a small community, whatever they could afford, to pony up. And there was some resistance. Harlingen, San Benito got on board, Los Indios got on board, all the small communities got on board. The community that kind of was hesitant was South Padre Island and Brownsville. South Padre Island because they believed it was gonna negatively impact their convention center. Now I'm speaking to South Padre Island people, people say, hey, we may want to participate in a regional convention center. Hidalgo County just built their second one. And convention centers per se really don't make any money. It's all that spin-off money that is made either through sales tax, through hotel motel tax, tourism dollars. But for people from Brownsville drive to Hidalgo County to go and listen to their concerts and go to their, whether it's a State Farm Arena or the other one. So I think that we lost an opportunity there at the time. I don't think it's too late. I think we can probably pursue something like that, but it's going to take a lot of cooperation from a lot of the communities in Cameron.
Let's talk a little bit about economic development. There's been a reshuffling of organizations in Brownsville. The Brownsville Economic Development Corporation gets folded. Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation starts up. and has got the city money for that exercise. When that happened, some of the board members on the old Brownsville Economic Development Corporation said, well, let's now work with the county. There was an effort which didn't seem to go anywhere of the county having a big economic development arm with the rump, what was left of the Brownsville EDC. Your thoughts on Cameron County? How do you see the county's role in being a facilitator for economic development, given that the cities already have their own EDCs?
Everybody has their own EDC. Everybody has their own chambers of commerce. There may be some ad hoc meetings that get together about coming together, but the one entity that no one ever talks about, and you did not mention it right now, are school districts. And I've been a proponent. I learned that as secretary. You know, I was going meeting with different communities, and one city, I forget which one it was, but one city actually had their members of their school district participating at my meetings. And I thought, why don't we do that? I mean, why is it that we do not bring in school districts in a more active role, giving them a seat at the table when it comes to economic development? So if people in the audience that are watching say, well, school districts are about educating kids. Well, if you look at it strictly in that sense, yes. However, we need to keep in mind that in most communities, including Brownsville, including McAllen, including Edinburgh, including Harlingen, the school districts in those communities do a couple of things. One, largest employer. Two, largest tax base. Three, highest tax rates. More rolling stock and more buildings than any other governmental entity combined. Their budgets are bigger than, for instance, BISD, Brownsville, has almost $500 million budget. That's more than every single governmental entity, unless my math is wrong, in Cameron County, one school district. So I think that we
biggest
need
employer south of
biggest
San Antonio.
employer. Okay, I mean they got more employees than everybody else combined. Whether it's 1,500 city of Brownsville and 1,300 Cameron and 900, you know, you start adding up, it's not going to reach the 7,000 or 8,000 plus employees that BISD has. So if you bring in all the school district employees in Cameron, it's a large employer block. So why not bring school districts into the fold, give them a seat at the table to talk about economic development? One thing that we're missing, you know, I learned what it takes to bring relocating entities into a region. And I spoke to entrepreneurs in Dallas and Collin County and Tarrant. You know, what brought you here? I mean, why is Collin County in Plano, Texas, and why are they going, you know, because there's a labor force there. But they look at things such as things that we don't even think about. What if you are going to move to a community and you're going to relocate a company, what is it that you're looking for? You're looking for educational facilities. You know, I'm bringing my family. Is a school district a good school district? Is it, you know, they're looking at healthcare. Are there adequate doctors? Are there adequate medical facilities? What are their tax rates? Are they low? But the one thing, infrastructure is important, but the one thing that nobody likes to talk about, and I would mention it, is the integrity of local government. And that's an intangible, because if you have a Fortune 500 or a Fortune 1000 company want to move in our community, they're going to be looking at the integrity and the stability of local government. Many times I would speak to other elected officials locally and say, guys, if you're going to have disagreements, that's okay, but you have them either behind closed doors when you can, and be courteous to each other when you're in open session, because people are watching, and they don't want to relocate to a community where we have a dysfunctional elected body, regardless of whether it's a city or the county or the school. They don't want to see that. They don't want to bring their families in, and they don't want to relocate if we have dysfunction amongst. I'm not saying that we do, but if people are behaving in a way that is somewhat embarrassing to everyone, what are the odds that someone's going to come and want to move here having to deal with that? So school districts is a component that we need to utilize. There's been some about setting up a Cameron County Economic Development Council made up of representatives of the existing economic development councils. I think that's a great idea. But I think we need to expand it a little bit further and somehow come up you know, the Rio Grande Valley Partnership is a good tool, a good mechanism. Maybe kind of work off of that. What I'm suggesting is that we cannot be trying to solve today's challenges and problems with yesterday's ideas. We have to think out of the box. We got to think of a way to promote. You know, we live in a great area, and I was able to see that when I was away for 2 years. I don't believe for 1 minute that Cameron County is the humblest and poorest area in the country. I've seen and driven through poor areas, and I don't believe that. I think it's either somebody's not talking, someone is, sometimes I see people here locally that wave a banner with pride saying, oh, we live in the poorest area in town, in the poorest area in the county, the poorest areas in the state. I don't believe that. I think we live in a very vibrant community, and with the right leadership, we can make it even more vibrant.
At that point, Carlos, we're going to pause it and ask the viewers if they have any questions, please to tune in and type those questions, send them to us. We have Sergio Martinez saying he definitely agrees with the concept of integrity and stability of government being a driving factor to attract business. And that's from one of the viewers. And I know when we had a live stream with you before, you were saying the same sort of thing. It's something that we don't often hear, that one of the criteria that companies look at when they're looking to move to a new area, they want to be reassured that the government is not corrupt, basically, that you've got stability and continuity, etc., and that the government's performing as it should do. And we don't often hear that, particularly in the Valley.
Well, you won't hear it. You won't hear it. You may hear it now from other people that want to chime in, but these are not sound bites. I mean, I've had this position for quite some time. One of the advantages that I believe gave me as being Secretary of State was the opportunity to see how other communities evolve. I was in a community where they just lost a large manufacturing plant. 350 employees lost their jobs, and it was up over in East Texas. And they asked me, what is it that we can do? Well, I've said this before. Every community in the Valley in Cameron County is like a spoke in a wheel. If one community is not running right, it affects the balance. Every community in this county has something to offer. If you look to the island is prosperous. It's starting to come back after 2008, and then the bridge collapse. I mean, it's starting to come back. The island is an area that I believe is an area that people drive from thousands of miles to come to the island. And we don't use it enough. But the island is only one segment. It's only one spoke. It generates probably 20% of the overall tax base of Cameron. That little 2.5, 3 mile stretch, half a mile wide, generates more tax revenue for us than any other part of Cameron. Harlingen, great medical facilities, international airport. Brownsville, the history behind it. The zoo, going back to the zoo, the Port of Brownsville, an economic generator, but we have to be willing for everyone to work together with one voice. I don't have an agenda other than working together. I don't have to prove anything to anyone. If I can remind people of what happened in 2007 when I got elected, I was the only county judge that called the other 3 county judges to have a meeting. And it was Starr County, Willacy County, and Hidalgo County. And it was Judge Vera in Starr, it was J.D. Salinas in Hidalgo, and Judge Barnhart in Willacy, and myself. And we met in Weslaco. And we talked about, I'm the one that put the meeting together. They said, no one's ever called us before. And here we are, I'm the one Republican speaking to 3 Democrats. And it's, look, I don't have a dog in this fight other than what's good for us. And I didn't want to talk about issues that were polarizing. And I didn't want to say, you're better, we're better, whatever. It's the same thing that I told Governor Abbott, and I've told people from Mexico. So let's talk about things that are going to bring Texas and Mexico together, not things that are going to polarize us. Same thing. I want to talk about indigent health care. I want to talk about the levy system. I want to talk about economic development. How are we going to attract entrepreneurs and businesses to the Valley? I don't want to talk about where I-69 is going to go, whether it's 77 or 281, even though I had a pretty good idea where it's going to go. And again, because of the relationship that we had. So we talked about those things, and it worked out. You know, Hidalgo County got their, you know, this levee wall system done because they had money readily available. They had just passed a bond issue. They redirected those monies in order to do that. That was a good thing. So we started working together in that resolve. You know, frequently when I was county judge back then, even as secretary, people they never asked, how are things in Brownsville, Texas? They'd ask two things: how are things in the Valley, or how are things in South Texas? Because people outside of us look at us as a metroplex, as a region. You know, they have a vision in their mind of what the Valley is all about. It's only us here, our own back, that we talk about the myopicness, if there is such a word, about what is good. You know, Brownsville, we're too busy competing with Hidalgo County, McAllen. You hear all the time, oh, McAllen is this and this and this. We have our own benefits. We have our own, you know, our own initiatives. We have our own plan. Instead of competing with those areas, we're going to be working with those areas. Do you know how many people are transient people that say they live in Cameron but work in Hidalgo or work in Willacy and vice versa?
Not yet.
Hundreds. I mean, hundreds of people do this.
Not yet enough to qualify for the federal government to say this is a united MSA. I think if there was a bit more living in Harlingen and working in McAllen or vice versa, then the criteria will be there, the numbers will be there to have that united MSA that everyone talks about.
Well,
it's going that way.
That's those are the kinds of challenges that we have, and we have to recognize that we are. But we're not going to get there by polarizing each other with our adjoining county. That's not the right thing to do. It's embracing and talking. You know, I've gotten along very well with the last several Hidalgo County judges, whether it was J.D. Salinas or even Ramon Garcia. I mean, I consider them friends. Ramon Garcia, you know, if I get elected, and you know, I wish him well. But I also know Richard Cortez, if he gets elected, and I know Richard well. We're fellow CPAs, and so I understand that in order for Cameron to succeed well, and for Hidalgo to succeed well, and even Willacy to succeed well, we must be pulling the same direction. What's good for Cameron is good for Hidalgo, and vice versa.
As you've spoken very eloquently here today about regionalism, do you have a view on the Valley having one united regional airport? Because I remember interviewing Michael Browning when he was the director at Valley International Airport, but he said this only because he was leaving, I feel, but he said if we had one airport, we would have more destinations, even perhaps a direct flight to Europe once or twice a week. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, it's conceptually it may be a good idea, okay, but I think Brownsville's come too far, made such a large investment. Harlingen, you know, obviously, if Brownsville were not around and they were trying to establish another airport, I think it'd be a challenge. I think Harlingen serves a lot more folks. A lot of people from Brownsville, you know, obviously drive to Harlingen every single day. I used to use both, you know, depending on where I was going to go. Why not work it together? I mean, you know, I don't see Harlingen closing their airport, and I don't see Brownsville closing their airport. So the talk about another airport somewhere else in the middle, maybe I don't know if I've heard 511, you know, somewhere a huge regional airport. Then what do you do with these other two? I'm sure there's somebody that's a lot smarter than I am are going to figure it out, you know. But for now, you know, I support both airports. You know, if I know Brownsville had talked about swapping off passenger for freight, I've heard that, but it's kind of hard to give something up once you've had it for so long, you know. And Brownsville Airport was here long before the Harlingen Airport was. Brownsville was the premier airport at the time with Braniff Airlines. You know, Brownsville had the opportunity to bring in Southwest, but at the time it was a up and coming, back in the 60s, it was an up and coming airline. Nobody thought it was going to succeed. Braniff was strong. Brownsville went with Braniff. They, you know, it lost out, and now Southwest is what it is today. I'm hoping the Valley becomes well, there's one in McAllen, you know, so I'm hoping that there is enough traffic for both to prevail. But to pit one against the other, I don't think it's wise. I will do whatever I can to support both of them, and just kind of, you know, do the best we can with what we've got.
Okay, next question. Let's get back to the election. You're discussing very interesting policy issues there, but as for the election itself, you're very famous for finding out what the people think by standing on a street corner. That's your modus operandus.
Trademark.
Trademark every election. Tell us, you're doing it again this year, I'm sure. That, as you are, tell us what you're hearing from the voters when they toot their horn, they stop, they want to talk to you about their issues. What are you hearing from them that's important in this election?
Well, let me tell you what I'm not hearing, what I'm not seeing. I'm not, an audience, don't get offended. I'm not getting a lot of one-finger howdies like I used to early on. The support has been overwhelming. The support, I've got people stopping, asking for signs. A lot of people taking a double take. They can't believe it's me. But yeah,
doing this.
I've done it 13 times already. I've posted on my Facebook. I'm on stop number 13. I'll probably do number 14 today. Probably I'm thinking about the southmost area in Brownsville, the HEB intersection, and Southmost Road.
What time will you be there? Let's tell the audience.
I'll probably be there from about 5 till about 6:30 or so. I stand for about 2 hours.
Okay, viewers, that's where, if you want to meet him and talk to him directly.
When I come by, pick up a sign, I'm there, you know.
But what do you get out of that?
It's a very, and somebody will make fun of me for saying it, but it's a very humbling experience. I've had other candidates call me about, hey, we want to do this. What do you recommend? And can we do it? I said, yeah, I mean, go ahead and do it. I do it standing alone. I think alone, for me, it may not work for other folks, but for me it works. I stand alone with a sign, and I just stand there, and I get you get the feel. It's just a feeling, you know. I never know till the day, like today. I didn't know where I was going to stand yesterday. I'm thinking about where I'm going to stand. Just something comes to me, and just this is where I'm going to go today. You know, tomorrow or the next day I may be in San Benito or Harlingen or La Feria or somewhere. I can't. It's kind of hard to explain. You know, it's just a feeling that I like it. It you know, and there's nothing more encouraging than families, men, women of all ages, whether it's a 20, 40-year-old car like mine or a brand new car, thumbs up. I even get a kick of law enforcement or school bus drivers that, you know, they're in a public vehicle and they very discreetly give me a thumbs up, make sure no one's looking, and they give me a thumbs up. That's very encouraging. I've had EMS drivers, I've had first responders drive by, give me a thumbs up. People, they stop, people wave. I think I've only gotten maybe less than 5 thumbs down, but that's expected. You know, that's okay.
Any specific issues though that they're coming to you and saying, can you fix this?
No. You know, I mean, I think you can talk to 100 different people, and 100 different people have opinions on what needs to be done. But I think the one I guess thing that I've been very proud of is the fact that I am very accessible. You know, I think that's one of the things that public officials should be, not hiding, not running away, avoiding meetings, showing up late to events. You know, people's time is valuable, and it doesn't matter whether they're you know, an attorney, a doctor, a CPA, an engineer, you know, a landscaper. You know, time is valuable, and it's all relative. So I respect people's time. So, you know, if I'm going to be somewhere, I'd be there on time, maybe early if I can. But the main thing I get out of this is just people see me, that I connect. And it's important to me to connect with folks. The one thing you did not mention was I've been the only candidate that has gone back after I won with a thank you sign. And people said, why are you going back and thanking everybody? Again, same street corners, And I said, well, a couple of reasons. Number one, I believe that my constituency deserved it. And number two, I didn't have a whole lot of money to spend in newspaper ad thanking her. But like everybody sends a thank you note or post something in their newspaper. Sometimes I've done both, but I've always gone back and said thank you to the voters, the same intersections that I stood at initially.
Thank you for that. We're going to go back to policy issues now. I know this issue was very important to you as Secretary of State, the state of the Valley's colonias. As county judge, do you see a role there for yourself and Commissioner's Court to improve them even more than you've done in the past, or to try to influence state policy on what to do about the colonias?
It's kind of both. As Secretary, I got to learn a lot. I visited a lot of colonias throughout the border. Many that still do not have not only infrastructure. Let's forget about paved streets for now. Just basic necessities, running water and wastewater. So there's almost 500,000 people that live in colonias today along the border between Brownsville and El Paso. There's over 2,200 colonias. A lot of people watching and listening right now don't think about it. I don't believe they even aware of the number of people that live in this state that live in third world conditions. It's a very, very, very expensive proposal to try to mitigate the living conditions, but it's got to start somewhere. When I first was elected in 1990, I focused on two areas: Olmito and Cameron Park. And for those living in Olmito that are watching, before I got elected as county commissioner, they were still on caliche roads and dirt roads. Today, I believe all the streets in Olmito are now paved. Cameron Park was the same way. There was just one that had caliche, which was Rancho Viejo Boulevard, that made the loop around Cameron Park. There were no other paved streets. They're all basically either dirt or caliche. If you go to Cameron Park today, it's a whole different colonia. And that's not to say that I did it all, because that's not accurate, okay? But you got to have a proponent. You got to have somebody that's going to take the lead. The Centro Cultural, the little community center that's there, was built when I was county judge. When I was county commissioner, Tony Garza was county judge with the help of Texas A&M, and we provided the land. We bought the land for $60,000, and then A&M came and built that little community center. It's now expanded into a park. It offers other services. So really, Cameron Park is no longer the colonia that we saw a couple of decades ago. So it's different. So I wish that on every unincorporated area in along the border. I'm going to continue fighting for colonias, and I think it's. But I know the other side. The other side was taxpayer money. People knew what they were buying. They deserve it. And that's very. In a way, there is some truth to that, but at the same time, we have to recognize that we live in what I believe is the best state to live in the country. We got over 1,000 people a day coming to Texas. People are moving to Texas from other states. California, Texas is now known as Silicon Prairie versus Silicon Valley, because we have a lot of high tech and entrepreneurs moving to either, whether it's Austin or Plano, San Antonio with the Toyota plant. We have a lot of businesses coming, and there's a reason for that. Texas is right to work state, no state income tax, and there's a good environment for people to come to. But we cannot ignore colonias. And it's not a very popular subject to talk about. Texas can do more, and it should do more. And the leadership at times didn't want to talk about colonias, but I brought it out, And I think with $100 million a year for a commitment from the legislature. It's not the governor's issue. This is a legislative issue. If they committed $100 million per year for the next 15 or 16 years, that commitment, we can basically fix every colonia along the border. The last estimate that I heard was take about $1.5 billion to put water, wastewater, all things that we that live in the urban areas take for granted. With that, I think property values will go up in those colonias, hence property, it'll pay itself back. But the main thing that crime is higher in colonias, health issues are higher in colonias, but the main thing that I want to focus on are the health issues. And I think that when you don't have an adequate water supply, adequate sewer system, they're breeding grounds for diseases.
But if you've costed it, and it does cost 100 million,
Billion.
Yes.
Yeah.
For a decade of expenditures, is the political will there in Austin for that? Given that most of the colonies are along the border, and so they're going to say, those states reps and senators might say, nothing to do with us. It's not our community. Why should we put so much money into the border region?
Again, it's the right thing to do. Number one. Number two, if we want to continue advocating Texas as being the greatest state, which I believe it is, it's kind of hard to say you're the greatest state when you've got 500,000 people living in third world conditions. And as I prefaced a few minutes ago, it's not a very popular topic. It's not popular at all. Let's bring this close to home. We have Cameron Park that basically a donut hole. The city of Brownsville is annexed all around it. It'll annex through on Paredes Line Road. It'll annex 100 feet in, but leave that colonia out. And their argument is, well, if we do this, we're going to lose, federal funds. We're going to lose state funds. You know what? I don't know if anyone's really put a pencil to that lately. And that may have been true 10 years ago, 5 years ago, but I don't believe it's true today. I think that's an area that should be annexed. There's probably 10,000 people that live in Cameron Park today, probably 2,000 households. A lot of their infrastructure is built up. I think it's a good time, now that's assuming Cameron Park wants to be annexed. They may not want to be annexed, and I'm not going to push for that. That's a municipal issue for Brownsville to make.
So Colonia is definitely part of your legislative agenda, if elected. You've got the legislative session coming up in Austin in January. What other issues are going to be on there from the county's perspective that you want to get in front of the state legislators with? What are your issues there?
I think there's 3 issues that I'm going to focus on. Number one, where are we with the causeway? All of a sudden, I've been gone, and all of a sudden things just kind of like stopped. And I think I know what the reason is, and I think I can address that reason with TxDOT and the governor. That causeway is something that started. It's probably been in the works ever since the bridge collapse, But it's been, I don't know. I mean, over a decade. But we need to address that. Number 2, infrastructure dollars need to be. Look, Ann Richards said it best, and I was a big fan of Ann Richards, still am. But I remember she in a speech that she gave. She says, the valley is not the back door to Texas. It's the front door. I don't know if you remember her saying that. And then she was the first governor to really recognize the importance of the valley, and then it followed through with others. Yes, we've gotten a lot of infrastructure dollars. We've seen a lot of improvements, but I think that we can do better. Third, we live in an area that is very. We have a large indigent population. I'm going to talk about Cameron. If I'm going to go up to speak to the legislature, it's not going to be just strictly for Cameron. That's going to be the focal point. But again, if we're going to talk region, then I think we support the region. Indigent healthcare is a big issue. I don't support a hospital district unless whatever taxes they raise, the county reduces their tax rates by that same amount. That way it's a wash, for the taxpayers. Let's talk about veterans a little bit. I was with a veterans group last week. We all recognize how important veterans are and have been to our community. And veterans are the ones that I speak with are happy that, you get a high school named after veterans or a bridge after veterans, and you've got to be disabled to some degree to get any type of fiscal benefit. But why does someone have to be disabled, a veteran be disabled, in order to not reap the benefit of something? So a few years ago, while I was county judge, I spoke to the legislature about waiving, basically, and this would take state action, waiving all homestead property taxes on all veterans, whether they served in peacetime, in war, whether they're disabled or not disabled, everybody. That to me is putting your money where your mouth is. And I remember speaking to Harvey Hildebrand was the chairman at the time that I was speaking to, and I don't remember who it was, but it was one of the state reps. I think he was out of Bexar County, and he said, "Well, you realize how much money governments are going to lose if we start doing that. Have you thought about that?" I said, "Yes, sir, I have." "Well, what are your thoughts?" My thoughts is how much is freedom worth to you? Silence. So I'm still going to propose, propose that. I just don't think, kudos to the veterans that have served during wartime and have come back, and I appreciate all the sacrifices that they've made. But again, do you have to have some kind of a disability in order to get a tax break? What about the 2 years or more that you left your family, you left job opportunities, you left educational opportunities to go serve your country? And then you come back and what's there? So that's what I'm going to continue proposing. I did it when I was county judge back then. I'm hoping now that there may be a different mindset now where maybe, look, even if they say, you know what, we can't do 100%, but we'll do 50% for all veterans on their homestead, not their businesses, on their homestead, and their surviving spouses. Hey, I think it's worth it. I think a veteran would much rather have a little bit, a few dollars more in their pocket than having, a symbolic park named after them or bridge. That's all fine. I mean, it's great. It's a great, way to recognize them. But I think most veterans rather have, a little bit of cash in their pocket to help them out versus, a building or a park or a bridge somewhere.
So those are your 4 issues for the legislative session. If elected county judge, you'll be going to Austin promoting those 4. Now another topic entirely different, something that really mattered a lot to you when you were Secretary of State, because you were the state's point person on this, Mexico, relations with Mexico. As a county judge, do you have a role there? Can you affect policy at the state or national level as it comes to relationships and trade and culture, etc., with our neighbors?
Again, the role is going to be whatever I make it. The advantage that I do have is as secretary, I went to Mexico 5 times. I know most of the consulates around, and I think I have the advantage more than anybody else. I know the governor of Tamaulipas. I know the governor of Coahuila. I know the governor of Nuevo León. I went to their inaugurals, so I know them. I know some of the cabinet members. Now, that's going to change, obviously, but I think it's important that we may go as a delegation, not just a county judge, not just a mayor, but I think we go as a South Texas delegation. I think we go and promote our area. One of the issues that I spoke to the Governor Cabeza de Vaca and Governor Jaime Rodriguez Calderon from Nuevo León was the tourism and the safety along their highways. So Nuevo León started to do something different. What I recommended was they needed to put more military in there on the highway so people could travel safely. I did the same thing with Cabeza de Vaca. You want people to start coming to Ciudad Victoria and traveling Mexico, you got to make your highway safer. When I spoke to the new mayor of Matamoros, the same thing. He wants to reestablish his police force. They don't have a police force. They have military. So maybe there's a way to, as far as the impact I can have, the relationships that I built up in Austin are still very strong. Obviously with Department of Public Safety, DPS, are very strong. I believe that if I call a chairman, I'll get my phone call returned. But in terms of what I can do as county judge, I can't do anything alone. But I think developing, as I mentioned, some kind of a welcoming delegation, with Mexico, traveling to Ciudad Victoria, traveling to Monterrey, traveling to Mexico City as a body, I think could reap benefits. But again, we have to have an agenda as to why are we going? What is it that we want to accomplish by going? So I think I'd sit down with some of the leaders throughout the county and in the valley and say, do we want to do this? Let's not go and waste a bunch of money just to go and have a nice cabrito somewhere. Let's figure out a true agenda, what our topics are, and let's talk about things that we have that we may have a direct impact on. Not talk about immigration issues. That's not our deal. Not talk about a border wall. That's really not our deal to be talking to Mexico about. But let's talk about maybe tourism and how we can share information. I think there's got to be a better communication between law enforcement on our side and the law enforcement on the Mexican side. I still believe that Mexico needs to do more along their border. And I've told them this. We're partners, right? Well, then act like partners. You want us to do this. Well, what are you doing? What are you doing to patrol your northern border or your southern border where most of the undocumented illegal are crossing now? It's no longer, it really is, people may or may not know this, but it's not so much Mexicans that are crossing illegally. It's everybody else that's crossing illegally. I sent a letter to Trump before I left that said, look, instead of looking at a wall between Brownsville and El Paso of 2,200 miles, which is bad idea, there might be some areas along the border that need a border wall, but there's also areas that have a lot of natural deterrence. We have a river that maybe if we had a weir or something, we could raise that level of water. Why don't you work together with Mexico and build a border wall, a real border wall with security along Mexico's southern border between Guatemala and Mexico? 335 miles versus 2,200 miles. I'd probably try to promote something like that if I could as well.
Carlos, thank you so much for this interview. We're coming up to the hour mark, and so we probably should call it a day. But before we do,
let's go on. Let's continue.
We could. It's very fascinating for me to listen to your ideas. If you don't mind just looking at it, tell the voters of Cameron County why they should support you. This is your closing remarks.
This is my closing remarks.
You got it.
Well, for all three of y'all that are watching and listening, thank you so much for taking the time out of a busy Monday to engage in this interview with Steve. Steve's been a friend for a long, long time. I'm going to ask for your support and your vote. This is going to be a very tough race. I understand what the challenges are, but I also believe that I have a very good track record as county judge, for 8 years, Secretary of State for 2 years, County Commissioner for 12 years, DPS Commissioner for 2 years. I challenge you to look at the resumes. Don't look at the political parties. I've always advocated and thought that neither party has a monopoly on good government or good ideas. I think that there's good in both parties. I think both parties have some genuine concerns about what direction our county, our state, and our nation are going. It's about who can do the better job of promoting our livelihood, promoting our agendas, promoting our county, and promoting South Texas. So I humbly ask for your support, your consideration, and your vote. And if you cannot, I understand. I still represent each and every one of y'all. But if you can vote for me, it's a vote that you will not regret. My track record is good. It's solid. And I'm very proud of it. So with that, que Dios los bendiga y espero su voto cuando puedan. Gracias.
Carlos, thank you so much for today's conversation.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Let's do this again soon.
Well, we have, as I said, offered to the incumbent Judge Treviño to have a public debate or conversation in front of a live audience.
That'll be fun.
We hope he take us up on that.
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you
All
again.
right. Thank y'all. Okay, we're good.